This week, I was asked by the Huffington Post on the occasion of its 10th anniversary to predict what Social Security might look like 10 years from now. And I had to conclude after giving it a little bit of thought that that's a future which is filled with both possibility and danger. Now, the possibilities are great. And to understand how rich they are, I guess the best way to start is by looking back 10 years. 10 years ago, in 2005, George W. Bush and his fellow Republicans were hard at work trying to privatize Social Security. That proposal would have replaced much of this program, which, remember, guarantees your benefits in your retirement or disability years, with a plan that would have invested its funds in privately managed accounts instead. That would have been a massive payday for Wall Street, but would have proven catastrophic for the American people just a few short years later. Now, the Democrats successfully defeated that plan, and voters loved them for it. Polls showed, in fact, that the electorate trusted Democrats with Social Security by a margin of more than 20 points that year. Older voters turn out in large numbers in off-year elections, and the subsequent election in 2006 was no exception. What happened that year? The Democratic advantage on Social Security helped them recapture the House of Representatives. But by 2010, that margin of trust was gone. President Obama, who had campaigned on a platform of protecting Social Security, had reversed course by then, appointing two anti-Social Security activists to co-chair a deficit commission, which was also charged with looking at Social Security's finances. Now, predictably, these two co-chairs introduced benefit cuts, which the president was later to include in an annual budget, especially in the form of what they call the chained CPI, which is a benefit cut. Now, polls in 2010 show that by then, the Democrats' massive advantage on Social Security had evaporated. A 20-point lead had evaporated, and the Republicans, in fact, actually held a slight edge. The GOP ran that year on a phony and vague platform, which they called a Seniors' Bill of Rights. But phony and vague or not, they recaptured the House that year. Now, those were dark days for the hundreds of millions of Americans who either depend on Social Security today or will do so in the future. President Obama seemed determined to strike a grand bargain, which included Social Security cuts. Even many of the Democrats' most liberal leaders verbally and publicly embraced the faulty economics and kamikaze politics of Social Security cuts. Decades of paid proselytizing by entitlement opponents had hardened into a conventional wisdom of a sort of bipartisan nature in Washington, and no amount of common sense or polling data seemed capable of changing that misguided so-called wisdom. But what a difference a few short years have made. Today, many people in Washington understand that Americans' retirement security has been devastated by a radical wealth grab on behalf of the richest among us, and that for the rest of us, wages have stagnated and personal wealth has fallen. Meanwhile, employers have largely dismantled guaranteed benefit pension plans, replacing them with savings programs that are incapable of meeting the retirement needs of the middle class. Now, people fortunately understand that nowadays. At least some people do. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have championed the idea of Social Security expansion, which is desperately needed. And in fact, 42 of the Senate's 44 Democrats recently voted for a bill that would have expanded Social Security's benefits. But that doesn't mean the battle is over. As we pivot to looking 10 years ahead, remember, no Republican has endorsed benefit expansion. In fact, the GOP leadership on the Hill spent the very first day of this year's session ginning up a kind of artificial crisis over SSI, Social Security's disability program, so they could set the stage for plan-wide benefit cuts that would include retirements. Now, the leading Democratic presidential candidate as of now is Hillary Clinton. She said in her last campaign in 2008 that she was opposed to taxing millionaires and billionaires by lifting the payroll tax cap to strengthen Social Security's finances. That's an idea which is popular with voters and is gaining a lot of support on the Hill. But Clinton said back in 2008 that we need to rein in Social Security's budget and, quote unquote, pay as we go. She also endorsed the idea of a commission like the one that Obama eventually put together. What will she do this time around? We don't really know because she has yet to say what her feelings are about Social Security. She tells us she is evolving on other issues, but has she evolved away from the idea of a commission or budget cuts or reining in the budget, so-called, and has she evolved towards expansion of Social Security and lifting the payroll tax cap? We do not know. So the short version is, what will Social Security look like in 10 years? There are two things it might look like. If grand bargains and compromises and conventional wisdom prevail, it will be a grim future with insufficient retirement security for most Americans. If wisdom and vision and evolution prevail, we will have a future where Americans will have a little bit more retirement security than they do today, and their retirement program, Social Security, will not lag behind those of most other developed countries as it does today. Which future will we get? That's up to us and our determination to get it. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.